All right, everyone. So in today's episode, I'm going to talk about when the market is going to heat back up because this is a question that I see a lot of you asking me here today, and I generally see it anytime we go through this hot and cold cycle. When it's hot, everyone's excited, we're all enthusiastic, we're getting big winners, and then when it's cold, people panic. When is it going to heat back up? How long do we have to sustain this cold stretch? Now, there's a quote from a movie. I think it was a 1999 film with Johnny Depp. It was quite a long time ago, and the name of the movie was Blow. And there's a scene with Johnny Depp and his father, who is played by Ray Liotta. And Ray Liotta owns a plumbing company. They in Weymouth, Massachusetts. And so he's working at this or he's running this plumbing company, but eventually the plumbing company files for bankruptcy. And they're in the bank together, and uh, they're doing the bankruptcy filing stuff, whatever. And when they finish, you know, Johnny Depp's father, Ray Liotta, says, "You want to go get ice cream?" And he says, "I don't want ice cream, Dad. What are we gonna do? Aren't we poor?" And he says, "Oh, what's the name of that character? George." He says, "Georgie, this is the way it goes. When you're up, you never feel like you're going to be down again, and when you're down, you never feel like you're going to be up." And there's something about that line that really stuck with me. Maybe it was just the way they portrayed that character. Maybe it was Ray Liotta. Life goes on, and just his ability to roll with that big punch. And I think about that with trading a lot because, when trading is hot, you feel like it's never going to get cold. And then when it's cold, you think it's never going to heat up again. And I've said that before, because that is how it feels. Now, I'm also going to just preface, maybe I should have said it sooner. For those of you guys watching this recap on YouTube, you may be like, wow, this guy's trading from a boathouse or something. This is my traveling trading station right now. I'm trading on an island off the coast of New England, and I've set up, my laptop and my two USB monitors here. I've got my emergency light here, just in case. Now, hopefully, of course, I don't lose power, but just in case I do, I've got my emergency light with my little beacon on the bottom. So I am fully prepared here to be offline. I've got a kayak over to shore later today to get some milk and bread. But anyways, so I'm on my traveling trading station here, enjoying a week here during the month of August with my boys, my two boys, and a little family trip here. But I do, of course, work is important to me, and I try to show them and lead by example that it's important to see their father is working, and I work every day, regardless of where I am. So this is my environment for right now, and I'm enjoying it. But as it turns out, this week has been quite slow. The last month of July was phenomenal. It was the best month I'd had in 2.5 years of trading, and then all of a sudden, it kind of died off. And so I've been noticing people saying, "Ross, when's it going to pick back up?" So here's generally the way I view and perceive these cycles. We have hot and cold cycles in the market. We also have some degree of seasonality in the market. And by the way, you can see my P&L for today, $481.17. Barely enough to buy groceries today. Well, certainly not if I get mixed nuts. But as long as I keep it moderate, I should be able to get some groceries. So it is a slow day today. And I think what's going on, and what I typically see is that when we have a period of big momentum, when we have something like what we had last month, usually that cycle, if you're trying to figure out like where did that even come from? I think that's important. So how did that cycle begin? Well, let's go back and look at last month. So I'll pull up my metrics here for the month of July, and let's see. We'll look at the very first, kind of the first days where I started to break out of my standard deviation of like normal kind of green days. This is the last 30 days right here. Okay, this is pretty wild. So obviously, really took off and now kind of, plateauing a little bit, which is okay. Certainly better than going like that. I don't want to do that. I'd rather go kind of sideways and then pick up for the next leg higher. So if we do a report here, we can actually look, and actually this is an exciting moment here because let's just check this. There it is. I have just crossed over 13 million in gross profit. That happened yesterday. 13 million in gross profit. Wow. That's exciting. $13,887. So I imported my trades from the week just this morning, and that's the first time I checked it. So I have now turned $583 into 13 million in gross profit. That is before fees and commissions. Fees and commissions are 1.2 million and 300,000. So net of fees and commissions, the net takeaway is 11.4, almost 11.5 million. Now, some people would say, well, what's the net after taxes? Well, don't even get me started on that. First of all, it's none of your business. No, but so I traded in my Roth IRA. About 6.7 million of that is in my Roth IRA. So 6.7 million is tax free. The remaining 3 million or 4 million or whatever it is was in a taxable account, and so I paid like 40 plus percent income tax on that, which is a tough pill to swallow, but it is what it is. So anyways, my marginal or my average tax rate on the 13 million is I probably paid about 2 million in tax, so a little less than maybe like 18%. Not bad, all things considered. Okay, so anyways, the reason I came in here was to look at the month of July. So we look at last month here, July, and if we look at the calendar for July, we do the overview here. We can see that July 1st here was $273. July 2nd was $496. Okay, so obviously that was pretty slow. Maybe we should just back this up a little bit more into June and just kind of get a little more context here of what June was like. So we'll do 90 days here. And what you can see here is this is the end of June. So it was kind of hitting decent days, 6,000, 4,000, 3,000, 4,000. Couple red days, $1,000. This is a red day, 800. This is a red day, 2,000. This was a bigger red day at almost 10,000. That was back on June 6th, so about 2 months ago. And this was my last red day on June 27th there. But it was kind of a really slow stretch right in here. Had a red day and then a couple tiny green days, and then all of a sudden right here, a $6,900 green day. Again, this is net versus gross. Gross is going to be a little bit more before the fees and commissions. So that day there was July 3rd. And the stock that I was trading on July 3rd was KOSS. KOSS was the beginning of this hot cycle. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, there was a thread on Reddit that really took off, and KOSS goes from $5 all the way up to $19 a share. I think it actually went a little bit higher in after hours trading, but nonetheless, an incredible move, made 8,000 bucks. All right, so then the next day, KOSS continues to be volatile. We get a couple more days of price action on it. And that was the beginning of that hot streak. It started with KOSS, and then a couple days later, I'm trading ZAPP, the ZAPP. That was the stock that went up several days in a row. So we had this nice move on ZAPP. Let's see, that was, I think, the 8th or so. And then we had SNGX. I'll just do daily charts so you can kind of see. These were some of the big movers. So that was ZAPP from $2 to 20. SNGX. This one a couple days later ends up making another really big move. Let's see. So we had that one, and then that was on this day where it gapped up. And then we had, let's see, what do we have? GXAI. So now we were in a hot cycle where basically everything that was popping up was squeezing. Maybe that was a pre-market one. LGVN, this is another one. And so now we're in this sort of cycle where we're just seeing like back-to-back big moves. LGVN, down here from $1 all the way up to 7. That's another big move. Then we had SERV, Serve. This one, huge move here. The stake by NVIDIA, it kept going higher. And the moves just continued until we ended up sort of peaking with a couple of insane 600% squeezes in the middle of July. And those were these days here, 45,000, 42,000, right? So a couple huge green days. But now it started to slow down again. So Let's clear that out. And basically what's happened is, we had this costs and then 5, 6 days of huge momentum. It slowed down a little bit. And then we got a stock that went up 600% and we got another one the next day. So right now it's slowed down again. And what I'm waiting for is the next stock that goes up 500, 600%. Because when you're in this type of market, that shift from cold to hot can happen like that. It can happen so fast. What ends up usually happening is we have a lot of strength in the market, and then so when you get this type of big move on costs or on Zap, initially when you're coming out of a colder stretch, a lot of short sellers are going to be confident because there's been a period where they've done well shorting stocks that could squeeze up and they roll over. And so then they start to get squeezed out on these first few that just keep pushing higher. So what does that mean? If they're smart, they're going to be a bit more cautious to jump into these to the short side when they first start popping up. And that's going to mean less overhead selling. And that means most likely the stock's going to have a higher imbalance between supply and demand that's going to go to the buy side. So you get an even bigger squeeze up. All right. So now stocks are getting more exaggerated moves. But if shorts are smart, they're going to wait for it to roll over. They're going to short the top and then let it kind of unwind back down. And when you start seeing stocks that go straight up like 200% and then come right back down, that's the sign that we may be near the end of that hot streak. Because during the beginning of the hot streak, you have stocks that don't do a full round trip. They just keep going higher and higher and higher and higher. So anyone that starts to short at the top, forced to cover. It goes higher. They try to short again, they're forced to cover again. It goes higher, and it goes higher and higher. But then when you start getting ones that do the full round trip, what that's telling us is that the news wasn't strong enough to sustain the move. Traders jumped into it. They were eager, hoping it would be the next one to go up, whatever, 500 or 600%, but it wasn't able to hold those levels. And so then shorts get the reward coming back down. So now shorts start to build a little more confidence and longs start getting a little more cautious because wait a second, we just saw how many stocks do a full round trip. I'm going to be a little nervous to jump into the next one. Shorts are going to be a little faster to jump to the next one because they're expecting a round trip. And so now that you kind of get this correction back down to pops rejecting, people being more cautious getting in. And so right now, what we're seeing is like at this point, I'm not as confident jumping in something with breaking news because even the ones with breaking news have been a little hit or miss. If we think about yesterday, I had 3 trades, 2 losers, 1 winner. I was up $1,500. They were all news trades and it was sort of, it wasn't that great. Today, I have 5 stocks I've traded. I'm green on 3 out of the 5. We'll sort this by P&L. I'm green on 3 out of the 5 here. But you could almost say these are all break-even trades because none of them are up or down more than $1,000, which, for me, generally I'm looking to make at least 1,000 on a good trade. So none of these really played out that well, which means I took 5 trades today. Well, I had traded 5 stocks and I actually had 7 total trades. I believe it was 7 total trades. And of those 7 trades, let's see, I had 4 winners and 3 losers. So it's 4 winners and 3 losers, which, that accuracy is not phenomenal. It's okay, but I didn't have any big winners today, right? So today was a day where it just wasn't really happening. And, to tag on to what I said yesterday in yesterday's episode, I followed the process today, just the same as yesterday. Yes, the topic of yesterday's recap was process versus profits. And if you focus on process, you take the same steps every single day. You do the same thing other profitable traders are doing. You're following the right path. Now, look, today I followed the process, but I don't have a big green day. Does that mean I should abandon the process and give up and switch strategies? No, the process works. The variable for trading, and certainly the variable today, was that we didn't have any really good opportunities. The stocks that we had just didn't end up giving us the big moves that I was looking for. And so the result of following the process today was that I only had a small green day, and it could have also been a small red day, which would have been fine, but it just happens that it's a small green day. The process works, but right now I have to respond to the current market conditions. This is the concept of trade the market you're in, not the market you want to be in. I'd love to be in a market right now where I'm making 20, 30, $40,000 per day. That would be phenomenal. But that's not reality. And if I try to trade the way I would trade on a day where I'm up 20, $30,000, I'd be trading with big size, super aggressive, holding my winners longer. If I did that today, I'd be down 10 grand easily, right? This isn't the market today that calls for that type of strategy or that type of risk and level of aggressiveness. So today, generally speaking, I was more conservative. I took smaller size than I would on a day I'm being really aggressive, and I got in and got out quickly. I was hopeful that we would see some momentum, that something would start to pull away, but it just didn't end up happening today. Now, what did surprise me today was that BURU didn't go higher. BURU is a stock that we've been watching since last week, and I think I mentioned it on my watch list on Sunday. It actually had news this morning. So they had a news headline this morning at 8 a.m. and it pops up, and I was like, this news headline with a 300,000 share float, this has the potential. And I was shocked this thing didn't rip. So that sort of speaks to the fact that right now traders are being more cautious, because I bet that news headline 2 weeks ago would have sent the stock up 100%, right? The float, the imbalance between supply and demand, like the recent reverse split, the daily chart, it was all set up well, but today, right now, in this market, not a lot of buyers. People are being more cautious, and maybe shorts are being a little more aggressive, and that all leads to, following the process, but the end result, well, not as exciting. And that's fine. That's just the way it is, and you have to be willing to adapt to that. This is one of the things that was really hard for me to do in the past, to cool off and to ease off the throttle when things started to get slow. I wasn't good at pumping the brakes. I would just keep going really hot. I would be really aggressive. And next thing you know, I'd be down, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 grand over the course of 3 days. And now I've dug myself a huge hole into a cold market, and that's going to be hard to recover loss. Imagine if I was down 15 grand right now or whatever. I'm still only up $400 today. And because I'm at all-time highs, this $400 just feels like, well, I'm just chipping away, making a little profit. That's nice. But if I was down 15 grand, there'd be a high degree of this isn't enough. I need more. I've just lost so much. I need to be taking bigger chunks out of the loss to really recoup. And I would start trading my P&L. I would start forcing it. I'd be getting emotional, right? How quickly I lost 15, 20 grand and how hard it is right now in this market environment to make it back. And so that's classic for me, that I'd have a really nice hot streak, and at the end of it, it would end with a big loss. And now I'm in the red, and that big loss was just because I was being too aggressive while the market cooled off. And now I'm stuck in the position of trying to recoup losses during a cold market. And then by the time the market heats back up, those first few wins are digging myself out of the hole that I dug at the beginning of the cold streak. Then it starts to pick up, and I'm making new highs and whatever, only for it to happen again at the end of that next hot streak. So that, for me, what used to happen is, I had bigger waves in my P&L here. And I've been trying to smooth that out as much as I can. Obviously, you have to be reasonable. There's only so much you can do, but I'm trying to smooth this out. So right in here, you could see I had a little bit of a dip there. There's a couple dips, but overall, the last 90 days have been pretty good, right? Like I said, a $10,000 day there, an $8,000 one there, 6,000 there, 6,000 there. So these were days, nice green day and then red. Green day, red. Big green day, red. So I'm right now having some big green days, and I'm trying to prevent going red, but you can see what's happening with the P&L, right? It's getting smaller and smaller. So I'm setting myself up, if I keep being aggressive, to have a big red day. I've got to keep it really tight each day. Trade with smaller size, be a bit more conservative, not try to hit those home runs or do anything crazy. Just slow and steady wins the race. So when is it going to heat back up again? Here's my thought. My thought is that we're going to need a stock to come out with news, and it's probably going to need to be a pharmaceutical stock, some type of biotech pharmaceutical stock that comes out with news, and traders initially short it. So initially, it's going to pop up. It's going to look like this. It's going to pop up here, and it's going to drop down. It might even do a full round trip, but then it starts to curl back up, pulls back, and then it rips back through and makes a new high. And right there, that's when we're off to the races, because it rejected and then came back up. That's going to be important because that's going to prove that the news is strong. Once we get that first squeeze back up, then I'm going to be buying those first pullbacks right here for the next leg higher. And if that stock happens to be, trading with a float of less than 5 million shares, less than 2 million shares, we might see a really nice squeeze out of it. Now I see INDO moving up, Indonesia and Energy Company. This is one that, although it's given some moves, I don't expect it's going to be the one that goes crazy. Again, look, I could be wrong. It may end up being that we switch sectors, we move off of pharmaceuticals and we move into something else, but I don't really expect it's going to be that. Um, I'm hoping it's not a penny stock. Sometimes, a penny stock that goes from 30 cents to $1.50 will start a new round of momentum, really specifically on those low price stocks, which I know some people really like, but I don't trade them that well because I just churn commissions and they're hard to kind of jump in and out of for me. So I'd prefer that the next cycle of momentum is also sort of focused in the price range where I do the best. That'll be the luck of the draw. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But each day I'm going to follow the same process. I'm going to be sitting down, I'm going to be watching my scanners. I know what I'm looking for. And today, BURU was pretty nice. It was a pretty nice looking setup, and I stepped up, I took the trade, and I was disappointed that I didn't get more out of it. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. Today's just a day where there wasn't a lot of that momentum in the market. Typically what happens is after you have that first big move, a lot of people will miss it because they weren't trading aggressively. They were being conservative. The market was a little cooler, so they're like, oh shoot, I just missed this huge move. And then it's the next one and the next one where the moves get bigger and bigger and bigger. That's what typically happens, and that happened perfectly in July. It started with costs. A lot of people were caught off guard. Then it was ZAP, ZAPP, then ZNGX, then IVF, and then it was, AZTR and a couple others, SXTC or whatever, that ended up going up 500-600%. That's when it got really crazy. So it was sort of the waves were getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Sometimes a hot streak will just be, one trade makes a big move for 3 days and there isn't really any sympathy momentum. It's just that one stock, and then, once that one's kind of over, it's over. That's been more typical of the last year. This hot streak from July was, definitely one of the nicest ones we'd seen in a while, where there was a lot of sympathy momentum, and it was sort of back-to-back stocks that were squeezing and pushing higher. So as a beginner trader, whether you've been doing this for just a little while or even if you've been doing it for a while, I'll say that it's hard to tolerate days and days or even weeks where it's slow. And sometimes people will say, Ross, what's the longest slow period you've ever seen? And usually I go back to 2017. So so in 2017, let's see, we'll go year. So let's see, we'll look at 2017 here. Was it 20? I think it was 2017 though. It's 2018? No, I think it was 2017. Yeah. Okay. So, sorry, I was looking at trade distribution by month. It was 2017. So 2017, I had a really good first quarter, January, February, March, and then I was red in April. May, June, July, August, September. This stretch here was so dead. It was so slow. 2, 4, 6 months. It was just so dead. And then boom, all of a sudden it came back in with Q4. So basically 80% of my profit was from half the year, from Q1 and Q4, and I finished really strong. So that was a 6-month period where it was pretty slow. Now it doesn't mean I wasn't making money, because I was, but generally it was pretty slow. I had to be content with hitting base hits. Now if we look at 2023 was also for me a pretty slow year, relatively speaking. Not a bad year, all things considered, but still relatively slow. Green in January and February, red in March. All right, that was the last red month I had, I think. So then April, but slow in May, June, and then slow in June and August. And then September, it was September that was really good last year, not August. That was my mistake. It was September that was really good last year. And then October was good. And then surprisingly, November and December were slow. It was just kind of a weird year. So there's, sometimes we think I think there's a cycle where I usually do better in the end of the year, sort of October, November, December, and January, February, March. But you can see year over year as we kind of compare these years, it's not always like that. Now, 2018 was really strong in January, and then by the end of the year, cryptocurrency was crashing, as I recall. Bitcoin was dropping, and it really threw off the overall market. 2019, kind of split. 2020, just totally outside the norm because of the pandemic, was slow to start and then went crazy. 2021, really good in January, GameStop, then it slowed down. 2022, good in August and September. 2023, good in September and October. And now here we are, 2024. Had a huge month of July out of nowhere. So, I show up every single day. That's my rule of thumb is I show up every day. This is 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 years of trading data that's just in TraderView because that's when I started using it in 2016. And you can see 9 days of showing up pretty much every single day. So I think that one thing you'll learn is that if you are not willing to um, adapt your strategy to the market will force your hand and it will force you into submission. That means either it'll force you to give up and quit, or it's going to force you to get disciplined and slow down when it's cold. And so for me, I was beaten into submission. So during 2023, I was trading with small size. I was just sort of chugging along. I was trying to hit home runs periodically, but it just wasn't working. And so I just eventually kind of gave up. And when I came into this year, I was like, all I can do is just keep, aiming for that $1,000, $1,500 a day, 2, 3,000 if I can stretch a little bit. $5,000 days are great, but the market might continue to be slow for a little bit. And I thought about traders who maybe had gone through the dot-com bubble. They'd experienced years of heightened momentum like I did from 2020 through 2022, only for it to die out, after the bubble burst. And, the pandemic didn't exactly, cause a bubble bursting like the dot-com bubble. But things definitely got a lot slower when the Federal Reserve increased interest rates in 2022 going into 2023. So, that's the reality. And they put the brakes on the market, things cooled off, and I had to be able to adapt my strategy. So I cooled off, I slowed down, and, when the market is showing me opportunities, I'm happy to pick back up. But if I have to go back to just, taking 10, 15 cent little breakout trades or dip trades, I'm also perfectly capable of doing that as well. And I hope that you'll learn to do that too. So that means be quick to take your profit when you have it. Don't overstay your welcome, especially when the market is colder. When the market starts getting hotter, you'll probably just be able to trade more in total. That's usually what ends up happening for me. I just see more opportunities. And initially, I'm still focusing on taking profits quickly and being pretty aggressive just to, book that profit, but then I'll get back in. Book the profit, get back in. Book the profit, get back in. And it's not till we've had a few days of really solid momentum that I start saying, you know what? Like, let's kind of let this thing ride and see if I can get 50 cents or $1 a share. And when I start seeing trades like that, that's when things get really exciting. So that is where we're at right now. Today, it is a slow day. Traded 5 different stocks. BURU, that was the one with news. OGen, that one squeezed up, hit the scanners. We had Lumen, higher float stock. Wasn't sure I wanted to even touch it. We had LGCL. This one is a Chinese stock. So, overall today, it was kind of choppy. Didn't get a lot of follow through, but that's okay. A small green day, and you know what? We will live to trade another day. So I'll be back at it, live streaming first thing tomorrow morning. It'll be my last day on the island for trading tomorrow, and I hope to see you guys here bright and early. So those of you guys tuning in on YouTube, if you have not already checked out a 2-week trial, we've got a link for a 2-week trial. I'll put it in the top of the description. And link to the top comment. So pin to the top comment so you guys can check that out. And I hope to see you here real soon. I'll remind you guys, as always, trading is risky. My results aren't typical, so manage your risk, take it slow, and practice in a simulator before you put real money on the line. I'll see you guys back here bright and early tomorrow morning.